Welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. Katrina has already set the stage. My name is Mathangi Krishnamurthy. With me is the resident artist Radha Rathi. And let me start by sort of dividing up the room. How many of you are here because you know Radha? Show of hands, please. Following up a very close second, how many of you are here because you know me? Great, I think we're done. I was just telling somebody right now that I feel this enormous responsibility that you've all given us an hour of your lives that you'll never get back. And I feel like now I'm okay. So without further ado, let's start talking about I Glitter You with My 1,000 Eyes. What a fantastic title. I hope the title was one of the reasons you all are here. I hope you've all had a chance to view the work as well and experience it. And therefore, much of this conversation is sort of going to be skipping around the work, but we're also trying to see how is it that all of you perhaps enter the work on your own terms, enter the question of art, and enter the theme of the Chennai Photo Biennale, which is why photograph? And I cannot think of a better work to ask that question, because if you've had the good fortune of seeing this already, you know that photographs are one part of it. There's text, there's affect, there's color, there's enormity. And so let me start with a little audience poll. For those of you bold enough to take up the challenge, can you give me perhaps a few keywords that the work evoked? And it's rolling in the background, so in case you haven't seen it, you don't have to fess up. Keywords. What is it that the work evokes for you? Just please throw us a few things.
Mystical.
Mystical. Okay. Great first word. Thank you, Annika.
Hybridity.
Mystical, hybridity, catnip for an academic's heart. Yes? Mystique, hybridity.
Stereotypes.
Stereotypes. Cheeky. For a second, Gayatri, I thought kinky.
Okay. Cheeky. Not sure if I'm
Cheeky. Okay. Cheeky, stereotypes, mystique, hybridity. Witty. There's cheeky, humor, witty. Cosmos. Now, cosmos is huge, isn't it? Cosmos, cosmology, the idea that you can encompass the world in sort of the thing. Lovely, beautiful words. Couple more? Banana, yes.
That's something to be
Mythological, mystical, feminist, banana.
Space.
I had something, sorry. Space, cosmos, sort of working together. Hinduism. A very, very strong sort of evocative set of symbols in here about Hinduism, about Ammans, as Radha will tell you. So let me do the opening salvo, Radha.
Yes, let's go.
All of these words that you've heard,
And?
how do they speak to you or not speak to you, and would you like to add to that corpus?
All the words. Is it?
We can hear.
Yeah, actually, I don't think I need a mic. I think all the words probably I could connect with. Of course, Gayatri's was first. Cheeky, I didn't think of. I was thinking I was being maybe smart or intellectual. Cheeky is a better way to say that. I agree. Banana, I didn't think of Mary. And the order Mathangi used, of course, feminism and banana, I don't know if that order was itself was interesting.
If you're into symbolism, perhaps.
Clearly, I think I would like to maybe just start a little bit about why I decided to do this, like a quick process, something technical about it. I started working on this about 4 years ago, not because I had this particular project in mind that time. I was heavily drawn to Ammans since childhood. Me and my sister, we have frequented a temple almost most of our lives while we were children. So there is also these miracle stories that is associated with the Ammans. So maybe looking at the form, often you don't understand why it lodges in you while you're a child, but I think there's a way to access that while you grow up. And Mary had gifted me a beautiful analog camera, so I was like, okay, I think I'm going to start shooting these Ammans, not knowing where it would go. I shot a lot of them in and around Chennai and some in Pondicherry. Of course, some of the Pondicherry ones, well, when it comes up, I'll show you, their forms are very different. But I think Tamil Nadu Ammans have something very raw and very sexual and very feminine energy as soon as at least I see them like that. Right? And you will see all these very weird, interesting forms across all corners. And maybe from then on, when I started looking at these pictures, I just shot them. And then, of course, Mari suggested this to Shuchi, and Shuchi was interested in seeing some of these pictures. And I think I developed the work thinking, okay, this is the wall I'm getting. I have a video space, I have this space. What is it that I can tune into right now? So I think the work itself came by its own information. Not so much because I planned to construct it like that. And I do have a question asking habit big time. I mean, I ask all types of questions. I'm sure everybody who knows me knows I ask questions that provoke, that irritate a sister or anyone else. Yeah. So I think I use them in very good format, at least in this. And I wanted to gently nudge, provoke, ask, and see if everybody could access some parts in their own ways, instead of trying to understand the work only through my eyes. Because it's not so much about who these Ammans are. I think it's the position of what an Amman holds for us in the society. And I wanted to, I think, just explore that from that point of view. Yes.
Thank you for that. And that really gives me a sense of what I think a lot of people have felt and spoken to us about in seeing your work, which is that there is a sense of co-creation to it. Everybody enters it and says, oh, this speaks to me in this fashion, or this is accessible, or I read the text and I think about what those questions might mean, esoteric as they seem. And some of these questions are flashing behind us right now. So maybe perhaps from my particular position, as a card-carrying anthropologist, I want to ask and I want to think with you.
Yeah, in fact, I want to ask you, what is the question? What is the question? No, actually, I'm going to take this. I think this is the question for you, Mathangi. I want you to respond to one of the questions that may be most connected with you, right? As a woman.
That one's quite easy, all the questions. But maybe I'll pick one out for the purpose of just fun, right? And this is a question you and I batted around while chatting, which is, what can a woman be that a man can't be? Or what is it that, something of that sort.
Yeah.
Right? And I think it connected to a lot of people because we do speak about, I teach feminist theory,
yes.
I work on feminism, I speak about it. But of late, what has happened to me in the process of teaching feminist theory for 10 years is that I've become drawn far more to queer theory. I've sort of reached the limits of feminist thinking via existing binaries without ever refusing the work of feminist theory itself. I think it did valuable work, but I find myself pushing up against the limits of it. Right? And Ammans are great to think with. Because I genuinely think everyday goddesses, everyday forms of worship, everyday forms of divinity in street corners produce for us something you and I have spoken about, which is a prospect of the everyday extraordinary. And how much we need it to get through this damn world right now. Right? And Ammans are queer in my imagination. Ammans are spectacular, they are everyday, they have very interesting foibles, they have very interesting powers, and they appeal in a way to imaginations of goddesses
And the relationships, I think the relationship of the child and the mother, I think it straight hits that.
So Amman itself, I mean, following
Yeah.
from the question of motherhood itself, but also from the question of the multiplicity of figurations of womanhood that arise within it. So one of the questions that spoke to me was that, right? But as an artist, the moment you create this kind of multiplicity of meaning, that speaks immediately to how we actually live. We do not live with singular meaning, whether in our own identities or that of others, even as we are forced to bracket them into corners of a certain way. Right? So that question spoke to me very ways. And it allowed me to think about myself as co-creating with you. So thank you for that. Because to go back to what I was saying, as an anthropologist, I think artists are artists, capital A. Right? You are all a wonderful, different set of people. And artists are spoken about in common imagination as those who have a compulsion to create, and they follow that compulsion in a sense. And this work allowed me to bridge those boundaries in my own imagination, truncated as it is. I fess up to that in that sense. But as a work of art, with all these keywords and the questions that you're asking in this compulsion, what I'm also interested in is your trajectory. Right? You, as a lot of people in this room, are a working artist. Right? And you were speaking about how you began by thinking about Ammans from a very young age, and then you have this wall and this space, and within that you create an enunciation. Right? So can you speak a little bit about your trajectory of work itself? Where do you see yourself as having moved through and come to?
Okay, you mean to say over a period of time? I would have to speak about that as a human being. I think all artists express because they find it difficult to verbalize things, right? So the expression started when I started working with a design agency. So that's how I started into the creative space. And then I went on to work with an ad agency. I think that learning of understanding other people's needs and then creating for them helps you to understand human beings, I think, a bit better. You start understanding yourself, you start also understanding others and maybe delivering for them. I think the trajectory as an artist, I think over a period of time, what I have come to realize is that all my work is just channeled work. What I mean to say is, I think we intellectualize the work after it's done, but the work didn't come from the intellect itself. And I think as artists, we often think it'd be great if you have like very abstract work, very like no human being should be able to access it. All of us feel that way, right? That okay, I think that you come from the space of just an artistic expression, but I think over a period of time I've understood that the process is, I can give you like, okay, I imagine only through reading. I can't imagine only visuals, or visuals don't come and, create anything for me. Like the collage, that is because I think there is a lot of unseen things within me that I struggle with, I try to understand, and every element I bring it into my work. That's why they float in this thing, because it floats in my body maybe, or it floats in my mind. But sometimes at that point of time, whatever I'm dealing with, whatever I'm trying to understand, I think it finds its entry point into the work. So from very design-oriented work to maybe creative work to now this artistic expression, I think everywhere the curiosity or the question and answer or the collage, right? I think I'm that. over the years, I think I have just expressed myself through this medium. Yeah, I think yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I think the moment you spoke, I could sort of like get a sense of what you were saying, because question and answer and collage, just as both entry point and technique, speaks so much to what I know about you. And for those who are not aware of the body of Radha's work, she's really amazing at the art of juxtaposition. She puts things together next to each other in a way that you may not have imagined, and they come together in a fashion that evokes something. It is a je ne sais quoi, and it is deeply affected. So as much as she says that I only access things through text, the work evokes tremendous feeling. There is a way in which affective enunciation is very much part of her vocabulary, even though she won't say it, but that's how I read it as well.
And because I'm a full feeling person, so all the feelings find their way into the artworks.
This is true. So the feeling is never outside of it, but that capacity for evocation I also find to be tremendously important in a world that I experience as enormously overdetermined. There is meaning being thrown at us all the time via text, image, media, all of these, and I'm in constant fatigue. And in that fatigue, something like collage works to give me confidence that one can hold multiple meanings together, that there is no one set way of reading the world. So that speaks to me immediately. Right? So let me return then to what we started with in this discussion. The title of the work. So attractive, so fun, so immediately pulling you into the work. Will you speak a little bit about how you used words there and why you thought about this title?
Okay, the title was given to me by Mary. He suggested this title, but as soon as he gave the title, it felt like the work opened up from that place. Because initially, when I was deliberating as to what this story could take on, and it had multiple options. Literally, I was like, I think I need to go into the beauty, the desire, the fact of who are these people who are managing Amans are all men. And they dress women like this. You can't ignore a certain fantasy there. You can't, right? You have to take that in. So there was this angle. There was this angle of devotion. There was this angle of just her beauty. That could you just go into that form? That talk about her energy and stuff. So what started coming together is that this work has these layers. I don't think I can put it under a box. And every time I'm looking at the work, I'm like, I am thinking, can I talk about it the way I spoke about it 10 days ago? I'm also not able to do that. So it's taking different meanings. And so the title, I Glitter You with My Thousand Eyes, is the representation of that these so many multiple points of view, and how do we look at this today as a modern woman? Not because it's a goddess story, it's not about rituals, it's not about devotion. I don't fully understand that because I'm not a participating person of that. I don't go by ritual. I'm just drawn to that energy, and through that energy, this glittering thing. So if you see the pictures, I think you'll be able to see that a certain desire, the beauty, so many layered perspectives are starting to come through that. So, and there is also this story about a goddess near Tirupati. She's called Gangamman. And when I was reading that book, it also said that this Amman you need to watch out so much with, because she has eyes everywhere. She has 1,000 eyes. So later it all came together. But this title also came from that. And all the Ammans, if you see that their beauty immediately from a man-made object comes to their eyes, which informs of the sculptor behind it. So there are so many people who are engaging with that one deity in front of you. She gives you different meanings. And so, yeah, I think to tell you, it felt it was an apt title for this type of a work that I wanted to evoke. I wanted to maybe leave some thoughts just for them to address. And I think you hear and you understand everything through your eyes, right? At least I do that. I'm sure a lot of people also do that. You can't just see, but all the interpretation of your memory is informed with eyes, right? Yes. And even if you have to imagine, we always say close your eyes and imagine. So there is some unsaid connection or a deep connection there. But yeah. Now I want to ask you a few questions, Mathangi.
Surprise.
Surprise, right? I think this is a. See, I'm very curious to understand why did you decide to teach feminism? Because I think something like that doesn't come because, okay, listen, there is a puff there, you can go and eat it, right? It's something that is too personal, you are too interested in, or there is some very natural calling that comes about. I want to know how come and why you decided to take on that subject.
But you know what they say. Some are born feminists, some have feminism thrust upon them. So in many ways, I don't know, in the current contemporary world, it almost feels like there's no choice, isn't it? How can you not be quote-unquote feminist, feminism standing in for somebody who understands gender as a point of difference? And it's a question I ask myself all the time, why I do what I do. Because God knows feminist theory is a dead-end proposition to teach. You have to sell it first and then people are not buying. However, it also helps, like you show us through your art, that all forms of work if they are intensely personal.
Yeah.
Right? So as an embodied being in the world, as a gendered being in the world, this is an experience that is available to us. It's up to us if we have the necessary conditions within which to be able to recognize it. I grew up in the 90s, right? And the 90s are this point, to give you a little socio-cultural context, the point at which you have opportunities for urban women, should you have the necessary caste class position to be able to take it. And mine was the same. I had the necessary capacity for education, for a job, etc., etc. So to my mind, in my 20s, feminism was not necessary, right? It was a big dream of pull yourself up by the bootstraps, anybody can do what they can do. You get older and you realize how stupid you were, right? You also realize that the things that you imagined you were fighting against and have individual capacity for have been produced thanks to the works of countless people who came before you, whose work you so easily forget. So my personal story was quite banal. I worked for a design company. I joined work as a brand manager. Before being an academic, I was branding, marketing, etc. It's the upcoming something in the world. And when they were allocating clients, my colleague got allocated Bajaj Motors. I got allocated this small company called Modi Care Limited. And when I asked why, because my colleague did not ride motorbikes, I did. They said, well, you know, with a client company for riding bikes, they will trust a man more than a woman. And this was my mild sort of intervention. I had first world problems. I was sort of like, why didn't I get the brand that I want? But it sparked something, because it tells you that you think of the world as endlessly open, but it's not. It arrives always already gendered. And this was just a mild introduction. So this was the beginning of my journey, and it was a very long journey, right? I got properly put in place and taught by a number of wonderful theorists, activists, people who worked with gender very seriously for far longer than I'd even thought possible, right? So this is a journey I still continue on. So every year that I teach feminist theory, I find myself increasingly more and more fulfilled. I find that every year I know nothing. I learn more and more. And part of what I was saying, that I now gravitate towards queer theory is fantastic. Right? It opens up your mind. It tells you that think about bodies differently. Right? So to think about what we were saying right now, which is what is it that a woman can do that a man can't. Your first wave feminism is they should do everything. Your second wave feminism is they are better than men. Your third wave feminism is it's all intersectional, it depends on which woman, which position. Fourth wave gets fragmented. And now we are at the point where queer theory is telling you that everything is mutable. The challenge is to be able to surpass those mutabilities. To be able to get out of those categories, which is very difficult. We work in categories. And so something like the collage to me interrupts the category thinking in itself. Because you see, they're all jagged edges. They're jagged edges stuck together and meaning bleeds from one to the other. So now I don't think of feminist theory as something that is announced as I'm a feminist. It is I think about gender in the world. I live as a gendered being. I gender others. Right? Sometimes I get it right in allowing capacity to others. Many times I get it very, very wrong. And then I move along and learn to do better. So feminist thinking, gender thinking to me is not a category. It is my being. I don't know now how to live otherwise. Right or wrong, that I get it every day. And so when I'm reading your work as well, right, this question of Aman's, it fills me with joy because it blurs the categories again. Any form of confusion, I now gravitate towards in my middle age. Right? As opposed to early youth when I wanted certainty with a kind of vengeance. So this is part of what I enjoyed so tremendously about this work too, not about constantly bringing it back to this, but that. A very long answer to a very short question.
Yes. I think now should we want to open the, I think, no?
Sounds like a great idea, yes? Shall we make this a more participatory,
since anyways
open
friends
discussion?
and family, everybody we know is here in the audience, right? So
Do you want to
is
throw
there?
open some questions to the audience?
Yeah, should we? Or do we have any questions to? Are there any discussion points? Shuchi, you want to start? Shuchi's like, I've curated the show. I've done my job.
Gayatri's question.
This question about the aunt, can you tell us a little bit more about that? That really has stayed with me. How well do you know your aunts? What kind of made that question make it to your final collage?
It doesn't have an answer. So if I give you an answer, it's made by me literally right now. Why did I think of that question? I think I wanted to understand that somehow, at least in North Indian family structures, paternal side, you will know everyone, you have to. You have to know your dad's brothers and aunts and everyone. Somehow your mother's side, all those aunts are left out. Because that is where the social structure comes in, right? It's not very easy to go and hang out with them. The general household doesn't allow the woman that freedom to be able to access her mother's place often. There has to be a permission sought. Okay, only when children have like summer holidays we could go. And I did think, how well did I know my aunts? One of them is no more, but I don't know them too well. But I know my dad's sister really well. How she is, what she does, what are the different things she can do in different families. I'm aware of all of that. So yeah, I think the question came from that. Yes. Anything else, guys?
Good question. For some of the artworks that have several images that have been put together or painted on, where do you start? Do you start from one point and then think, oh, this will be interesting, some light shooting out from the eye, add a rose, do you go step by
You mean
step?
the question layouts, or are you talking about the collages itself?
Some of the collages themselves.
Mm.
Some of the collages, like for example, the one with the banana, which lot going on. Where do you start and how do you know how you're going forward? Do you go back and edit after a few days? What is that process like?
I don't usually go back and edit, because if I do, I'll make a new one. Like I was telling Mathangi, right? 10 days later, I look at my work, I'll be like, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, let's push it out, and something new will emerge. For the collage making, like I was saying, everything is guided by writing. All the visuals come from that. So when I was doing research, I did do a lot of study on just the cosmic goddess. What does it mean to be a goddess in the Hindu philosophy? Now, if you see, that particular collage also has a little copy that everything, according to that philosophy, everything in the world is made by the Ammans, like the goddesses. So all the humans to all the objects that are available. So the introduction of banana maybe came from that. It also came maybe from the symbolism of how the temples have this presence of banana or something else. So the element introduction is like, I think everything that floats in my body, everything that is unseen, I think I will find a way to bring it into that piece at the time I'm ready for it, or that time that element speaks to me a lot. I think, yeah, I really enjoy the balancing of the elements. I want to study how do human beings live with all these things that they cannot see, but to bring out some interpretation that I can keep looking at the work and think of it in different ways. This is all indulgence for yourself, right? And it's great that others also enjoy it. So, yes.
We can watch the slideshow and I can throw out some provocations.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of interested in this conversation in asking you all as artists, as practitioners, scholars, etc., in your own practice, how do you sort of re-enchant the ordinary? It seems to be like an urgent requirement now. So I'm curious,
And we are going to pick the people we want answers from. Yeah? Shuchi?
I've done my work.
She's like, guys, I'm chilling.
Now you have to talk about it.
Yeah.
I am truly curious. This is not merely to fill the next 10 minutes as audience propositions. But part of what I think the world sadly misses is that the work of art is necessary. It is not a luxury or an indulgence.
Yeah.
We couldn't get through. Our capacity to live would be much truncated without the work of art. So I really want to know in your own practices, how do you think about the extraordinary or about enchantment?
Madhavan?
If somebody bites, I will give you a chocolate.
Maybe we have a very shy audience.
No, we have. Melissa's willing. Thank you.
Okay, so I've spent 20 years working with children and young people using a range of visual methods, and it's impossible not to be enchanted when you work with that age group. I think I credit all of these children and young people that I've ever worked with reminding me that the world is enchanting, reminding me that it is extraordinary, that you can pick up a very banal object and look at it in ways that you haven't seen it before. And that's influenced the way I have taken photographs, for instance. I spent a long time during the pandemic photographing lost objects on the street, which you would normally, I live in London, you would normally sort of brush by these things. And I always imagine kind of, who are their owners? The poor parent trying to soothe the child who's lost their favourite toy that I'm now taking photographs of. So I think that's how I found enchantment and the extraordinary in those sort of very banal corners very good at kind of getting into those nook and crannies, and irrespective of what you do. And I use the term very specifically, and politically, they enlist you into your worlds if you are open to them.
How wonderful, thank you. Children and animals, always a short bit.
Yes, that's true.
Thank you for that. And just to add a little caveat, this is not to say that the only work of art is to enchant. It's one of the works. It is also to show truth to power, to be able to expose the ways in which the world is really quite miserable. All of those are important, necessary things to be able to work through. Enchantment is what came to my mind with Radha's work, and that's one of the reasons I put it out there.
We did speak about the ordinary and the extraordinary, right? About, because the idea of a free woman is that, I think the way I looked at this question at the moment was, the idea of a free woman is a myth, and so is the goddess. So the extraordinary is already existing in the myth. To using goddess as a leverage point to see, can you find that a way to bring it into your ordinary, right? Because I don't think a woman can access freedom that easily. That agency has to be awakened by something personal, or like you said, right? You need a trigger sometimes, and that trigger just helps you to access that, yes, in the society today. Yes.
I also thought that the title was so great to present to us one way of gender thinking. Because what is the opposite of I glitter you with my 1,000 eyes, which is about Amman's 1,000 eyes are watching you? It's about the state watching you. Right? What is the masculine to the feminine of the Amman? The state watches you. It is the panopticon, it's the prison, it's surveillance, right? The masculine other to the feminine Amman watching you with some kind of grace and compassion is really the state. So this is how I was sort of like, I glitter you gives you a sense of being watched, but it is with love.
Yeah. With a certain care and tenderness, yes. Okay. So, yeah. Okay. So,
All right, folks.
all right,
See a
guys.
hand up.
Bye.
No, bye. We see somebody talking there.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
So I mean, no question, but I just wanted to add something. I mean, this something came to my mind, and Radha and I debate about this a lot. So I was having a conversation with my colleague the other day, and this was about how men can support women and all of that. And so he said to me, oh, I wish I could also bear the child to to help my woman out with that. And that's when I thought, I don't want to give up that. I don't want to give up that ability or that power or whatever you call it. So I think there's this interdependence between a woman. I mean, it's no longer really one can do what the other can, like that dialogue, but it's really that interdependence which I find quite beautiful. That one can't always do what the other can, but I think when without exploiting that interdependence, there's a way to actually I don't know, in a very ideal world, sort of live in a very kind way. I think I don't know if there's any room for that sort of
That's that could be an ideal space. Yes, it's true. I think the interdependency or the fact that the power doesn't have to be misused, because currently it's not balanced, right? I think the balance is what we are seeking. And like she said, I think the first wave spoke about like, hey, this is what it is. Second wave, we are better than men. I don't think it's all that. I think it's a ideal world that maybe, or a new earth system that maybe we all want to imagine without having to talking about this again and again. But yeah, perhaps curations like this can help us bring to some structures or something that we can all think about. Yeah.
Thank you for that. And I want to sort of end by quoting one of my favorite authors in the world, Bell Hooks, who says that to love well is the task of all meaningful relationships. So I want to thank you all for joining us in the task of loving Radha Rathi and loving her work well. Thank you all so much.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Mathangi. I think that was a really fun conversation. Thank you, darling.
Thank you all.